We took this awesome SEO agency from getting absolutely nothing from outbound, where they were working with an agency that was literally sending gift cards and nothing was happening, to $220,000 in cash collected in 4 months. And this is about a Doberman's tail shy of being 400,000, if not for some weird relationship dynamics between the company we're working with and, a competitor that ended up landing that deal. But that's besides the point. Today, I'm going to walk you through soup to nuts of exactly how we did it, from research to getting bamboozled to why it pays to have redundancies and why you should have absolutely no ego going into your outbound. Try to bring in almost no preconceived notions of what should work and what shouldn't. So we could have came into this and went, look, this is a saturated market, SEO, yada, yada, yada. But instead, we just wanted to look at their sales calls because obviously they have inbound interest. So let's listen to what inbound people are taking interest in. So, we had some Trigify campaigns that we'd like to start off the get-go to, understand where the market's at. There's a lot of engagement in topics like this. And actually, Trigify educated us a lot. If you don't know, Trigify is a great research tool because you can kind of identify what people are engaging with in terms of lead magnets or from influencers in the market to see where the market direction is going. Because a lot of that is dictated in terms of what the future of the market holds by influencers and by the educators that a lot of staff end up engaging with. This is kind of like a general overview of how the campaigns worked. But first, what I'm going to get into, and before we get into the copy, I'm going to get into how we came to the conclusions that we did. What we knew is that an agency failed terribly before us. So we knew going the normal route, here's their offer, it wasn't going to work. So we do like to take a grain of salt with what our clients tell us about their market versus what the market tells us and what we see, and really try to, instead of listening to the client, listen to the sales calls, listen to the closed one, listen to the closed loss, look at notes, and do our own research, unless they're already finding success in their market. What we found on those sales calls is that everyone was talking about Reddit, which directed our research. And as we went down the research funnel, we noticed that there was this huge Google Reddit partnership. Okay, that's number one. And this Google Reddit partnership made it so that product-led searches are seen in the top 5 and their Reddit posts. It really means that Joe Schmo that used your product once could have a huge bearing on all your future sales, because at the end of your pipeline, someone types in yada, yada Reddit and they see that your dog insurance killed someone's dog because it didn't cover the bill in time and so they couldn't get the surgery. I don't know. There was some review I read where someone's dog, they were saying a company killed their dog. Real story. And so we're like, wow, this is a huge existential problem. And it's not just an existential problem at the micro level if this is happening. It's also well known at the macro level that Reddit is important because of this huge shift. And this has happened in SEO a few times. And if you manage to jump on these shifts in market conditions, you can do a lot of cool things. Our initial approach was curiosity plus problem. So we scraped all the Reddit posts. We found out all the people that were trolling about businesses. We said, look, it'll take a ton of time to get Reddit to take this down. In that time, how many of your sales calls do you think are dropping off because they see this? How many customers do you think are seeing this per month and then going with a competitor, right? Existential problem. And we would just point the problem out to them. Like, look, here's this problem. No call to action. I'm going to follow up. The call to action was that I'll see you tomorrow with a couple ideas on how to fix this and why it matters. And then we moved on to calls. And so we got 22 calls through the door in the first month, 30 days of sending. And the reason it was successful is because the current state of the market was in a position where they were aware, but they didn't know how to do anything about these things. And so when you brought them a problem in this case, because of their awareness level, they're like, not only am I aware Reddit's a big deal, I actually have a problem on Reddit now. And these guys seem really competent because they showed me how to fix it. So that was the basis. But then we got absolutely bamboozled, which we'll get into after the copy. This is what the copy looked like. Are you doing anything to stop posts like X, the one about Y from showing up in SERP? Context, offer, going to circle back with a few ideas tomorrow. No social proof, no case studies. We saved that all for the second step because who in their right mind that's not trying to sell you something is telling you about a case study in the first message they send, unless the case study is literally your business, basically. Okay? So we didn't go that direction because case studies are super saturated. And I think it makes people feel like you're saying you know more about their business than they do. And these are big businesses we're talking about or talking to. So lots of personal connection. In the Trigify campaigns, we called out other colleagues that might like the lead magnet we were sending them. And this was creating a ton of engagement. And then, like I said, we got absolutely bamboozled. And how do we get bamboozled? Reddit banned all the scraping that you could do on their platform. So, bam, huge macro condition change that affected our campaigns. But thankfully, we created redundancy. And the reason we created redundancy is because we had a small market and only a small percentage of it was applicable to this offer. So we said, look, we'll do Trigify for some others. But then we said, hey, GEO is a big thing. What if we could also do the same thing? And this is where we're going to get into the most important thing in this video for you guys, which is building redundancy. From one thing, no 10,000 things. And so if you take away one thing from this video, I want it to be this. Everything about what we did in these campaigns, and I'll get into the other redundant campaign that we did in a moment, but everything we did with these campaigns was to build redundancy. And what I mean by that is, this is my favorite quote ever from one of my favorite authors, Miyamoto Musashi. And you hear me talk about this a lot. It's from one thing, know 10,000 things. And from knowing one thing and having one skill and understanding one concept, you should be able to glean insights that help you understand other things. That's the baseline of this. And this helps you build effective redundancy, not just redundancy. And so if we looked at those sales calls as one-offs, if we looked at those closed won as one-offs, we never would have thought in a way that this one person could be the same situation as 10,000 others. Same with lookalike campaigns. If you have a case study, this one company that's similar, why would we go after these other 10,000? Chances are, if they're in the same geographic area and they have a similar size, they could be in a similar situation. And because you're good at helping those businesses, it's going to be a little bit more believable. And guess what? Because of all those sales calls, you can make very context. You're going to hear me say this a lot over the next year. Context-aware copy, which you'll see a video on this soon. If we didn't listen to all that, we never would have built redundancy. And the funny thing is that the redundant campaign generated more revenue than the first one because Reddit was a huge problem, but people at large businesses work off of budgets. And so people were so excited to learn about this problem and figure out how to solve it. But it was hard getting deals over the line because budget approvals weren't going to be in place until 2026, which is not good for me. I've got to make my clients money, right? Or else eventually they don't really want to work with you anymore. So we built redundancy. And so how did we build redundancy? We just looked at what was working. We deconstructed it. And we looked for other macro and micro conditions that were popular in the market to position around. We got these ones from Trigify, not sales calls. On Trigify, the hottest thing you could possibly find was GEO. Now, GEO is heavily influenced by Reddit anyway. And so we were actually able to reposition this new offer they had around Reddit to be more successful, but pitch it in a new way to anyone. This other 60% of the market that didn't have problems on Reddit that were, surfaceable immediately. And so that's what we did. We took this subset of businesses and I said, look, you've got all these softwares blowing up and getting funding through the research that surface problems with people ranking for prompts. I can find out where people rank in a prompt. All you have to do is type in a prompt that's relevant. So we did is we went to work, we grabbed SerperDev, and SerperDev, if you don't know, lets you do Google search at scale. And if you understand Boolean, which I have a whole video on that you should check out, I think it's the most important skill for an outbound person. With Boolean, we were able to go ahead and find out what web pages existed for a business at scale. And then looking at the web pages and how they describe themselves in SEO underneath each of these pages, we can figure out how they position themselves. And so we could do searches like most flexible accounting software. We could do searches like best open source automation platform. And they did, right? And we did this and we literally just said, hey, right now you're 7th out of 10 for this search. Here's the exact makeup of the search. Platforms like blank show you what's wrong, but not how to fix it. And then we just merged what was working. We merged shine a light on a problem with lead magnet. We said, look, our founder did a 96-hour bender, humor in there, 96-hour bender on how to actually do something about these prompts. Want it? And that campaign closed the biggest deal yet, $172,000. And so what that showed us is that, one, redundancy is valuable because market conditions can change. Reddit banned our scraping, so we couldn't run that campaign. And number two, the odd thing was the Reddit one got more engagement, but it wasn't resulting in more closed won deals because of that budgeting issue. By paying attention to what's working at a conceptual, like fundamental level, you can adapt your campaigns to what is serviceable to that market and that market's awareness and find success no matter where the market goes, as long as you stay current with your services and make sure it's applicable to the current state of that market and that you can shine a light on that problem in a consultory way. So that's the direction we took. We had some notable sales calls with some massive organizations, $220,000 in revenue. And the next steps are just going to be to continue to build these redundancies, open up new markets, and continue closing deals. So the final takeaway I want for you is do your research, build redundancy if you have a novel angle that relies on something, and try to avoid the noise. Focus on closed won because closed won is going to be the most relevant thing for you. And from there, your number one job is to look at who is converting in these campaigns and try to build lookalikes, from one thing, no 10,000, who's converting, and try to identify why, right? All of your success in your campaigns, you need to dissect why, because that's going to allow you to expand and conduct future campaigns that are increasingly effective. And the cool thing about this is you can position the actual offer once you identify a problem in so many different ways. It increases the flexibility of your testing. We tested, Reddit reputation. We tested the sales call angle. We tested simply us versus takedown requests. We tested so many different things. And it's because one problem can be positioned in countless ways and it opens you up to flexibility. So I hope that helps.